The intro track is actually pretty funny because the intro track is literally was done for the purpose simply to be an intro. I grew up listening to albums that actually meant something as a whole. You know what I'm saying? I mean, back then when I used to listen to music, I'm saying back then like I'm 100 years old, but when I used to listen to music, especially when I listened to albums, you know, in the early 90s, you know what I'm saying, things like that, albums were made in such a way that they all made sense as a whole. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't just like a bunch of songs just put together for the purpose of just being together because it's just the artist's music. But an album actually meant something from beginning to end. I mean, even back in the day, you listen to the Thriller album, everything kind of makes sense with each other. You know what I mean? So when it came to making the journey and when it came to making an album, I always told myself if I ever was going to make an album, I was definitely going to make an album that actually made sense. Something that actually came together. It wasn't just going to be a random collection of songs. It actually was going to be a story within itself, you know, just as a whole. So when it came to making a journey and I came up with the concept and I came up with the idea with the album, I knew that I needed to have an intro because those albums have intros and I want an intro for the journey. So literally I just woke up one day and I was just like, okay, I need an intro. So I need to figure out how I'm going to make this intro. I had no idea what the intro was going to sound like, what it was going to end up being. I just knew that I wanted an intro. So I just went to the computer and I was like, I guess since I don't know what I'm going to say yet, I might as well just start with making the beat. So, you know, jumped into Logic and I ended up starting with just a simple piano, right? And I went with this, the Steinway grand piano. And the reason I went with the piano, because in my mind, I was thinking the piano is like that one instrument that kind of symbolizes everything. You know, it covers so many different ranges, you know what I'm saying? And when it came to church, you know what I'm saying, it's like the primary instrument for churches and things like that. You know, some could argue organs for some other churches, you know what I'm saying? But for me, you know, I grew up on pianos. So I was like, hey, I want to have pianos. I kind of want to have a church sound to it, you know what I'm saying, starting off because I am a Christian artist. So I kind of want people to, I kind of just want to kind of just get that into people's minds from the jump, you know what I mean? So I ended up coming up with this melody right here. You know what I mean? Now, with the melody, of course, you know, I have a harmony to it and everything like that. And I was like, man, that actually is cool. I think I could ride with that. And of course, I wanted it to have energy to it because in my mind, I was thinking, okay, the start of the album, the intro is the beginning of the album, but it's also the beginning of my journey. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, the start of my journey, well, how do I start my day? I typically, you know, even though I typically have a late start to the day because, you know, I sleep in a lot, you know, and usually by the time I do wake up, it's fast paced. You know, I'm getting up, I'm going, I'm out the door and I'm moving at a fast pace and everything like that. So I kind of wanted that feel when it came to the production of this particular track. So that's why I ended up coming up with that fast paced key as the start, you know, as the beginning of the beat. From there, it was just a matter of just, okay, what's next? And the next thing that it came to mind was, of course, the drums. You know what I mean? It's because I have the main melody. Anything else I add to it, I could always add to it. Let's go for the drums. So the first thing I did, of course, was the kick because the kick is the lifeblood to the track, right? So I ended up just using the trapdoor pack, which comes standard for Logic. It's not something that you have to pay extra for. If you have Logic, you automatically have it anyway, you know. But with the trapdoor pack, you could literally like tweak it however you want to tweak it. Like you could literally just go into its own settings and tweak it in so many different ways and things like that. But I ended up just getting something that sounded like this. Right? Now, once I had that, I was like, okay, let me go ahead and add some snares to it. You know what I mean? And once I added the snares, I had this. Then, of course, the next thing was the hi-hats. You know, you got to have your hi-hats. So this is what my hi-hats came in. And I knew that if I'm going to do hats, I'm going to do them super, super fast-paced. Because, again, I wanted that high energy feel. I wanted that feel to really just capture you and just be like, okay, he's moving at a fast pace. He's ready to go. He's about to be out the door. So this is what I ended up coming up with. Right? So once I had that going, I knew that, you know, of course, I was in a good place. I was in the right place that I needed to be as far as the track, as far as where I was at this point. So at this point, I was like, okay, I have the basics for the drum. I have the piano. Let's hear them together. Let's put them together. Let's see what we got. Once I started listening to it, I started thinking to myself, I might need more in the piano, because this is what I ended up having, and I was like, it needs more. So from this point, I'm just like, I'm going to add some more pianos to it, you know, kind of just give it some more life. So what I ended up doing is I ended up making the same exact piano melody, just at a slower pace. And I ended up coming up with this right here. Now, the funny thing about this is once I did this, I was like, I don't know which one I'm going to use, right? See what I mean by it slower? You know what I mean? So I was like, uh-oh. So I'm like, uh-oh, I have a problem now. Now I don't know which one I want to use, because I like this one, I like the other one. They both sound dope, but which one do I actually want to use? So long story short, what I ended up doing is I ended up just like, hey, before I pick between the two, let me see how they both sound. So what I ended up doing is literally just trying both, and I ended up getting this sound right here with both of them put together. And I was like, oh, that's tight. I think I'm just gonna keep that. So I ended up keeping those two together, and then of course adding from that point, adding the drums back in, and of course we get to where we at now, which is the now. At this point, you know, I kind of just fleshed out the beat more. You know, I started adding, you know, the other things to it, you know, to kind of just round off the beat and everything like that. And I felt that I was then at the position to kind of, all right, let's actually write something now. All right, let's actually put some words to this now. We know how we want to sound. It has that energy. It has that feeling of waking up, getting up and go. Let's go ahead and start writing to it, right? So I start to write to it, you know, and in my head, I just kept hearing, you know, I waited a long time for this, you know, at least that's the feeling that I had at the time. You know, I'm like, man, I'm actually putting this album together. You know, I waited a long time to actually get to do something like this. So that's the feeling I had. And then when I kept saying it over and over, you know, it just kept coming back to me. I waited a long time for this. I waited a long time for this. So I ended up jotting it down. You know, I waited a long time for this. You know what I'm saying? And the melody came to me and I was like, oh man, that's going to sound dope. So initially when I recorded it, you know, I recorded it with my own voice, you know, and, you know, I listened to it maybe 50 times. I was like, it sounds good, but it doesn't make sense. And when I said make sense, it's not in the sense that it didn't make sense as far as having the chorus or having a chorus in the intro, but it didn't make sense for me to have my own voice. You know what I'm saying? In my mind, I was listening to it and I was like, if this was a movie, right? And I was waking up in the movie and I was waking up and I was getting up and going, and you saw me on the TV screen and everything like that, and you heard the music playing in the background, typically it wouldn't have been you. I mean, you don't hear Tom Cruise's song when you see Tom Cruise get up and leave the door. You usually hear somebody else singing. So I was like, I have to have another voice actually singing as I'm waking up, as I'm starting my journey, right? So once that ideal came to mind, I knew that, I needed to reach out to somebody. I know kind of what I want to have as far as the theme of the chorus, waited a long time for this. I just needed somebody to actually do it. So I hit up my boy, Nobody GHY. For those of you who don't know, that stands for Nobody's Gonna Hurt You. He's a Christian artist. He's a good friend of mine. I hit him up and I was like, dude, I'm working on this intro track. I would really love for you to feature on this, and, see what you could come up with. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't, you let me know. So I sent it over to him. He listens to it. He's like, bro, I love it. I'll be honored. It sounds amazing. I'm down. Right. So he ends up recording his parts, you know what I mean? And he sends it over to me, right? So once he sends it over to me and, I put it on the beat, I'm like, yo, this is so perfect. This is so dope. So I'm listening to it. At this point, I'm listening to it and I'm just like, something's not right. Because initially, when I added his vocals, the beat and his vocals started at the same time. Like the whole thing went from beginning to end. So the moment he says, I waited a long time for this, is the moment you actually hear the doom, you hear the beat coming and you hear him coming at the same time. I was like, it's too much. It's too much. Like if you're waking up, when you're waking up, you kind of ease into it. You don't just abruptly wake up unless somebody, scares you or something, but you typically ease into waking up. So I was just like, I'm going to start it with just his voice and gradually bring the instruments in as he's singing, right? And that's what I ended up coming up with when it came to how the intro was going to start and how it's going to flow. So as you listen to it, I bring in the instruments little by little up until I actually start rapping. And it actually made out to be a great song, right? Now, once we got to that point, I had his hook there. I already had my 16 verse, my 16 in mind and everything like that. I hadn't laid it down yet, but I still felt there was something missing. He sounded great. The beat sounded great, but I still was missing that movie essence. I wanted something to kind of give it like some type of movie feel, some type of feel of a scene. So I went back to the beat and I was like, you know what? I don't have a bass. I was like, that's weird because I'm a huge fan of bass. Like I love bass. Bass is my favorite instrument, still trying to perfect learning it, you know what I'm saying? But I was like, I need a bass. Maybe if I add the bass, it'll give it the epicness. So I started messing around. I started going through a couple of things and then I ended up coming across this weird analog sounding thing. So I ended up basically creating my own version of it. I went into settings and then I ended up making this right here. And I was like, that's perfect. Like I was like, if there's one word that could describe that sound, that word would be epic. I mean, it literally sounds like a superhero standing on top of a building about to take off or something, So I was like, that's what's missing. That's what I need. That's perfect. That's exactly what I need to make this sound like how I want to make it sound, So I end up adding that into it. And then I ended up coming up with basically what we know today as Now, from this point, honestly, I was ecstatic. I was happy. I lay down my verse, you know what I'm saying? So you hear Nobody, you hear me come in and everything like this. Now I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have no ending. How am I actually going to end this actual intro? How is the intro going to end, right? And in my mind, I thought, okay, when I wake up, you know, I wake up, I get going and everything like that. What's one of the first things I do besides, you know, the basic stuff, the hygiene stuff and everything like that? I'm like, you know, oh yeah, pray, duh. Why don't I just add a prayer to the end of the track? You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, yeah, that'll be cool. I'll add a prayer. I'll just do a prayer there. But I was like, if it's a prayer to God, I kind of should just like put some emphasis on it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we are talking about our Lord and Savior. We're all talking about big God here. So I can't just have the same thing. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do a really dope instrumentation when it comes to the piano. We're going to take the same piano, but we're just going to make it grander just for the prayer part of the song. Now, the issue with that is I'm not a pianist, right? I'm a producer. You know, I could hold my own for when it comes to certain things for the piano. I could do simple things and things like that and things, you know, I mean, I could get down, but I'm not like a pianist. You know, don't put me on stage and expect me to Beethoven that thing, because that's not the type of pianist I am. You know, I'm not a pianist. I'm a producer. You know, I could play it a little bit. So I'm just like, all right, you know what? There's a girl I know who's on social media and she's a phenomenal pianist. You know, let me reach out to her and see if she would be up to do this, right? So I reach out to her, let her know, yo, hey, would you be willing to work on a track, you know, a hip hop track? And by her response, I kind of got that, oh no, hip hop? I don't do hip hop, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I was like, wait, before you think of what you probably thinking of, because, you know, for some people, hip hop kind of has like a negative connotation. I was like, how about I send you the track, you listen to it, you know, it's positive music, I'm a Christian artist, you know, just take a listen to, you know, what we got so far, you know, and if you like it, you know, you let me know. If you don't, no harm done, right? So I sent it over to her and it already had, you know, nobody on there. It already had my vocals on there. I sent it to her and, you know, I'm patiently waiting. I'm praying, hoping that, you know, she will be down to do it. And she responds back. She's like, oh, I love it. It's amazing. Yeah, I'll definitely do it. So by the glory of God, she ends up doing it. And she adds this amazing piano part, which you guys probably know, which is right here. Again, it's still the same Steinway piano. I just added more to it, and we ended up getting this whole part here. And I kid you not, when she sent that and I heard that, I was just like, that's perfect. Like, I thank you so much. Like, only God could have put that together in the fashion that he put it together, because it was exactly what I felt that part needed. So literally, once she sent that over to me, I put it in the track, I hopped in the booth, and I was like, all right, I'm finna do this prayer. And I just closed my eyes and I just brought it out. And what you hear on the track is literally the one take. You know, obviously it's not nothing, you know, extra crazy or anything like that, but yeah, that was one take. I literally just did it, and that was the end of the track, you know. So that's pretty much how the intro came about, you know, how it was put together. You know, it wasn't, you know, like I said, the most complex song. It wasn't something that like had a grandiose story to it, but I love how it came together. I love that it became an intro. It is an intro, and it gave you that feel, and it gives you that feel of an intro track, which I was so desperate to get, because I wanted that feel for anyone who's listening to it to, like, right off bat know that, okay, this is an album that I'm about to listen to, not just an assortment of songs. And I'm just so blessed and thankful that it came out the way it came out. And that's the making of the intro, the journey.
Let's go. I'm a pro, bringing lessons to the Pope. I'm a soul, you ain't know? Man, I told you this before. Like a water bungalow, I be floating on the floor. Man, I ride my own wave, I'ma never need a boat. I'm about to bring a whole nother flavor to the south, where the hater point them out. About to see what you about. I ain't trying to mess around. Keep opinions out your mouth. Man, I make my own lane and I take my own route. Let's work.